Hello, my name is Austin Steele. I'm an ag teacher at Neosho, Missouri, and I am the Area 11 MVATA president this year. And our area has decided to put together a couple constitutional proposals that will address our concerns that we have with the state FFA degree. Um, the rationale kind of behind this whole process before I explain each proposal is the fact that we would like to see it become a degree and not an award. And so, if we set some minimum qualifications and a kid meets those qualifications, then they ought to be able to receive the degree instead of that score fluctuating every year. And are they going to meet it or not? And so, I think with these proposals that we're going to present, and hopefully will pass, that we can now look a freshman in the eye and say, hey, if you meet these degree requirements right here, boom, 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 you will get the state degree by the time you're a junior or senior. And so that was kind of our rationale behind it. And so I'm going to walk through each of these proposals and how they affect that overarching goal. And then if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or whatever, and we'll try to answer those the best we can. So like I said, it's coming from Area 11. Those are the schools at the top that are part of Area 11 that are behind this proposal. And so the first constitutional proposal that we are going to present is basically striking out from the Constitution, striking out anything that is regards to 3% of the members receiving the state degree. It mentions it twice in the state degree or in the state constitution, allowing only 3% of the membership to receive the degree. And so what we're going to do is we would strike out both of those two that mention 3% and insert the following. Under Section E, it would say the state advisor shall recommend to the state executive committee all candidates who meet the minimum qualifying score as stated in the state degree handbook. The qualifying score should be only changed during a state FFA handbook revisions every 3 years. And so when the state degree committee met back in February, this proposal was talked about quite a bit for several hours. And there were several on both sides of the fence of do we like this or not. And so what the committee kind of came to a unanimous decision on is that if we will put we could put into the handbook that says a minimum score. And so they did not want there to be a minimum score in the Constitution in case that was to ever needed to be changed. It's easier to change the handbook. And so the committee agreed that let's take a minimum qualifying score and let's put it into the state degree handbook so that now we can say in the Constitution the student will receive the degree if they meet the minimum qualifying score stated in the handbook. The state degree committee also agreed to set the minimum qualifying score to start this next year at 550 points. And so the 10-year average over the last 10 years for the state degree was 561. And so 550 is a very relevant number and still a rigorous number to meet if all these proposals pass. And so the state degree committee said if we'll put this into the Constitution that says they meet the minimum qualifying score in the handbook, and then in the handbook it will be stated that 550 will be that minimum qualifying score. So that was the first proposal, to strike out 3% and add that bottom section to the state degree or to the state constitution. Our second proposal is to strike out 7% of the allocations and insert 10%. This was also talked about at the state degree committee selection meeting. And what this does is basically allows some smaller chapters to increase your number of students who are able to receive the degree. Now, here at Neosho, our number this year was 17. Okay, we did not have 17 qualified applicants for the state degree. And so by jumping that number from 7 to 10, yeah, it's going to give Neosho probably 1, maybe 2 more spots. But in all reality, it doesn't affect Neosho negatively, and it shouldn't affect anybody negatively. What it's going to do is going to help those smaller schools, a school that's got 65 to 70 to 80 kids. When we jump that to 10%, now you're looking at gaining 2, 3 spots compared to maybe only getting 1. So I think Constitutional Proposal 2 is a great addition across the board for any chapter, and I think it's going to help some of those numbers increase from a smaller chapter standpoint. Constitutional Proposal 3 is kind of goes in line with what Constitutional Proposal 1 was about. But Constitution number 3 or Proposal 3 says score a minimum of 150 points on the leadership section of the state FFA degree application. We're going to strike that out from the Constitution and insert instead meet the minimum FFA score as stated in the state degree handbook. Okay. Now, all we're doing here is taking the 150 points out of the Constitution and putting that into the handbook. So the state degree handbook will still say that a student must have a minimum of 150 leadership points to receive the state degree. That's still going to be a requirement. It just won't be in the Constitution. So therefore, if later on down the road, in 10 years, we decide to completely revamp the entire way that we do our state degree application, it's already in the process of saying, in the Constitution that as long as they meet the minimum FFA points, they're going to get the state degree. And so the purpose of the first three is to basically pull out anything that was points related from the Constitution and put it into the handbook. Okay, and now I know there's probably lots of concerns here. Well, we're pulling the power away from the members, and that they're not going to be able to actually have a say, and you're going to leave it up to a bunch of ag teachers to decide, well, this is what the number should be this year. And I agree with that to a point, and that's why Proposal 4 comes into play and kind of puts a checks and balances in there for the members and kind of gives them a voice back. And so if we look at Proposal 4 here, Proposal 4 says, and we're going to add this to the Constitution. This is not in there yet, but this would be a proposal, an additional proposal. And so it says, under Section F, it says, if the State Degree Selection Committee recommends a change to the minimum qualifying score, stated in the State Degree Handbook, then the delegates at the State FFA Convention must approve the new score with the majority standing vote. If approved by the delegates, the score would go into effect the following year. So what this means is that for the first 3 years, because the State Degree Handbook is under revision this year, so if this all passes, the next 3 years, the state degree cutoff number would be 550 points. As long as a kid met the minimum qualifying qualifications, they scored 550, boom, they get the state degree. So what this means is in 3 years from now, when the State Degree Handbook is back up for revision, and the State Degree Committee decides, you know what, we need to raise this number to 575, they will make a recommendation to the state degree delegates, or the state convention delegates, and that will go before them at the state FFA convention, that they would like to raise the score to 575. If the delegation approves that new score change with a majority standing vote, then that new score will go into effect for the next year. If the delegates do not approve that score, then the score would remain at 550 points again for another 3 years. And so it puts a checks and balance on the State Degree Committee in the fact that they can't just go in there and jump the points 100 points every 3 years, because I don't believe, in my professional opinion, that the delegates would allow that to happen. And that's where it kind of goes back into putting the power back in the delegates, but also a little bit of power back into each chapter, because each chapter can now just tell your delegates, we're going to raise this state degree score, or no, we need to vote this down so that the score stays the same. I honestly don't see the score raising or lowering very much at all after this 3 years. Now, if we get to 3 years from now and we realize 550 is just entirely too low, or it's too high, and the committee recommends a change, then I think the delegates will see, and us as ag teachers can inform our delegates, yes, this score needs to go up, or no, this score needs to go down, or vice versa. And then that puts that power back into the members, and that these members are actually in charge of their organization. But we all know as ag teachers that students don't fully understand what the state degree is and everything that goes into it. And so by pulling those numbers out of the Constitution and putting it into the handbook, I think that is where we as advisors can recommend changes that are going to benefit our students. And then in the end, the students still have the final say of, yes, we want these changes. No, we don't want these changes there. And so that's the 4 proposals coming out of Area 11. They all deal with the state FFA degree and how we can change it into more of a degree and less of an award. Because the same degree that I earned when I was in high school as a junior is this exact same state degree that a kid is going to earn at the 2019 State FFA Convention. The only difference is our cutoff score. We still had to meet the other minimum requirements that are listed in the state, the Constitution. And so I think we're on the right track of making this more of a degree and less of an award. If you'll talk to the people around the state, I feel most people are in favor of this. If you have any questions, please call me, email me. I feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to try to get your insight and kind of see where we're coming from on this. But these are the 4 proposals coming from Area 11. Like I said, if you have any questions, please contact me, and we'll try to get those answered. Thank you.